Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we are really tearing into a super exciting topic, something that's been making some serious waves in the sports world, specifically, the NFL.
Absolutely. A lot of buzz around this one.
For sure. We've got a great source here, an article from Yardbarker. It's titled, Jaguars Brian Thomas Jr. Cracks Prominent List. And our mission, like always, is to just pull out every single nugget of knowledge, all those key insights, maybe some surprising facts for you.
Giving you that shortcut, right, to being totally up to speed.
Exactly. We want you to have those aha moments. So, okay, let's unpack this. We're really focusing on a young player who, just absolutely exploded onto the scene. And he's already making history. It's kind of wild.
It really is. And what's fascinating, I think, if you look at player development in the league, is just how fast Brian Thomas Jr. has cemented himself. Not just, established himself, but really become a guy that every single defensive coordinator, every scout has to watch.
Not just for next season either.
No. We're talking years to come, potentially. And this Yardbarker article, it gives us a really clear lens into that immediate impact he had. And maybe even more important, how his performance just stands out, even when you compare him to, some of the all-time greats at receiver.
That's the really intriguing part.
Yeah. So this deep dive, it's going to help us break down not just what he did in that incredible rookie year, but really why it matters so much in the bigger picture of the NFL. What does it signal?
Okay, let's jump right into the big news then, the headline stuff. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, it looks like they really struck gold here. They have a genuine bona fide star on their hands. Second-year wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr.
No doubt about it.
And let's be clear, this isn't just, hype or fan optimism, which we see a lot with young guys, right? This is concrete recognition. It's coming from a major respected analyst, Pete Prisco over at CBS Sports. Guy knows this stuff.
He really does. His lists carry weight.
Totally. And our source tells us, specifically, Thomas has cracked a really prominent list. One that, it gets noticed in NFL circles. So the big reveal, the detail that really underlines all this, Brian Thomas Jr., he landed at number 44. 44. On Pete Prisco's recent top 100 players list in the entire NFL.
Just stop and think about that for a second. Top 50 after 1 year.
Exactly. All players, any position. But it gets even better for his position group. Even more significantly, he's ranked as the number 6 wide receiver overall on that same list. Number 6.
Wow. In this era of receivers, that's huge.
It really is. Now, I want you to really consider what that means for a player heading into just his second season. This isn't just potential. We're talking about maybe he'll be good someday. No, this is proven performance right now, placing him among the league's best.
Already there.
Yeah. And getting that kind of nod, early in your career from someone like Prisco, it speaks volumes. It's not just about the raw stats, though. The stats are impressive. We'll get to those. But it's about his impact, right? How people see him affecting the game and where they think he's headed. It's a big statement.
Indeed it is. For any player, really, any position, to climb onto a top 100 list after just one season, let alone crack the top 50. That's genuinely quite rare.
You don't see it often.
You really don't. The typical path for a rookie, even a top pick, often involves, flashes of brilliance, but also adjustment periods, mistakes, learning curves. To pretty much bypass that long process and immediately jump into that consensus top 50 group, that points to a level of proficiency, a consistent impact that very, very few rookies ever manage.
It's immediate readiness.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these kinds of lists, especially from guys like Prisco who've been doing it forever, they're often strong indicators, right? Bellwethers for future awards.
Like Pro Bowls, All-Pro.
Precisely. They often predict who's going to be getting those honors down the line. They reflect this sort of growing consensus among analysts about who the really impactful players are. And often, it's regardless of how their team is doing overall. Their individual talent just shines through. You can't ignore it. Now, let's zoom in on that number 6 wide receiver ranking because, wow, that's maybe the toughest position group in the league right now.
Oh, absolutely. Stacked.
Unbelievably stacked. You have to consider the incredible, maybe unprecedented depth of talent at wide receiver in the NFL today. It feels like a golden age for pass catchers, doesn't it?
It really does. So many elite guys.
Exactly. So to be slotted in at number 6 among that field, it means he's already viewed as one of the very best at arguably the most talent-rich position in the game. That's not just a casual observation.
It implies something more tactical, right?
It implies he's seen as a true game changer. The kind of player defenses have to specifically game plan for. A defensive coordinator looks at the tape and says, okay, what are we doing about number 0?
Do we double him? Leave someone else open?
Exactly that dilemma. Do you roll coverage his way, bring a safety over, knowing you're leaving a vulnerability somewhere else? Or do you trust your top corner on an island against him, knowing Thomas can potentially win that one-on-one? He forces those tough decisions. He dictates coverages, commands attention all week. That signals elite talent and just a strong competitive presence. Huge leap after just 1 year.
Okay, so to really get why he earned that spot, why people are already calling him elite, we got to dive into the specifics of that rookie season, 2024.
Yeah, let's get into the numbers.
Because his performance, honestly, it was nothing short of spectacular, truly.
Okay.
And it gets even more amazing when you look at it specifically through the lens of Jacksonville Jaguars franchise history. It wasn't just good for a rookie. It was historically good for that team.
Setting the bar high from day one.
Totally. So the article highlights a couple of key things right off the bat. His immediate impact, obviously, but also his durability, his reliability, something you don't always see from rookies.
Super important in the NFL. Availability is key.
Right. It says he started 16 of 17 games played. That's not just being on the roster. That's being healthy, available, relied upon week after week, which is a feat in itself in this league. Shows physical readiness, commitment.
Definitely. Withstood the grind.
And then, okay, the numbers themselves, the source is clear. 1,282 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, on 87 receptions.
Wow. Just read those off again. Phenomenal.
Phenomenal for any receiver, right?
Yeah.
Let alone a first-year guy. Many veterans would kill for a season like that. But here's the absolute kicker, the crucial detail the source points out. All of those stats, receptions, yards, and touchdowns, were rookie franchise records for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Every single major category.
Every single one. So what does that mean? Plain and simple. He had the most productive rookie receiving season in the entire history of the Jags, better than anyone who came before him in year one. That's a statement.
It absolutely is. Breaking multiple franchise records like that, especially as a rookie, it doesn't just get you noticed, it immediately elevates you. You become part of the team's lore almost instantly, sets a new benchmark.
Yeah, future rookies will be chasing those numbers.
For sure. Now let's break down those numbers a bit, what they actually tell us. That 12,282 yards, that's not just good. That's the mark of a legitimate #1 target in an offense.
Someone you build around.
Exactly. For a rookie to hit that, it shows an immediate ability to get separation against NFL corners, gain yards after the catch, which is huge, and just consistently move the sticks against top defenses. It signals elite offensive generation. And the 10 touchdowns, that's incredibly significant too. It immediately flags him as a primary threat, especially down in the red zone where things get tight.
Where you need guys who can make plays.
Right. It shows he can convert those opportunities into points. Finding gaps, winning jump balls, using his speed near the goal line. It speaks to reliability, sure, but also that kind of innate nose for the end zone. Invaluable trait.
And the 87 catches.
That high volume for a rookie, it signals huge trust. Trust from the quarterback, trust from the offensive coordinator. It means they weren't hesitant to look his way consistently. He wasn't just a deep threat or a gadget guy. He was a primary option. And he delivered, making catches, moving the chains. That builds confidence fast. And that line in the article that he made it clear he was a #1 wide receiver who every defense had to account for. That's really telling.
Yeah, what does that really mean in practical terms?
It means, basically, even though he was a rookie, teams couldn't treat him like one. They couldn't afford to put their second or third corner on him and hope for the best. From early on, he commanded that top coverage. He forced defensive coordinators to specifically allocate resources, maybe their best corner, maybe safety help, maybe bracket coverage, just to try and slow him down.
That level of attention for a rookie is rare.
Very rare. It implies he was winning those one-on-one matchups consistently enough that defenses had to react. He wasn't just fitting into the offense. He was a focal point that dictated defensive strategy, which, thinking about it, raises a really important question. How much more impressive did these numbers look when you remember the overall state of that offense?
You are absolutely right, because the numbers, they're jaw-dropping alone, but the source material gives us that critical context. It amplifies everything, makes it even more remarkable.
Right. He wasn't putting up these numbers on, like, the Chiefs' offense or something.
Not even close. He didn't do this on some well-oiled machine that inflates stats. Quite the opposite, actually. The article uses a really strong word. It says, Thomas did what he did on a putrid Jaguars offense last year. Putrid. That's blunt.
Yeah, you don't hear that description thrown around lightly by analysts. It suggests major, widespread problems, issues with overall production, efficiency, consistency, just struggling to move the ball and score points.
So what does a putrid offense mean for a receiver trying to break records?
Well, you got to think. It could mean inconsistent offensive line play, right? Less time for the QB, routes getting cut short.
Pressure in the QD's face constantly.
Exactly. Or maybe a poor running game, which lets defenses just tee off on the pass, more guys dropping into coverage. Or maybe just suboptimal play calling. All those things put way more pressure on the receiver to basically create something out of nothing.
And it wasn't just the system, right? The QB situation.
Right. To add to that, the article specifically notes he played with a banged-up Trevor Lawrence and a relatively middling Mac Jones.
So inconsistency at the most important position.
Yeah. Think about that for a receiver. A QB playing hurt likely means less zip on the ball, maybe less accuracy, less ability to extend plays. Then you switch to a QB described as middling. That's tough for rhythm, for chemistry.
Definitely. Building timing takes reps.
For sure. So the source concludes, and it feels right, calling his production an incredible feat for him to produce as much as he did. You really have to appreciate. He wasn't just getting by. He was thriving, excelling. In circumstances that would normally sink a receiver's numbers, especially a rookie. It says a ton about his individual skill. It really does magnify his success. That putrid offense label, it implies all those hurdles we just talked about. Shaky line play, maybe no run game threat, questionable play calling, all things that make a receiver's job infinitely harder.
Puts it all on his shoulders almost.
Pretty much. You need to win your routes faster, make contested catches more often, maybe break tackles after short catches because the big plays aren't getting drawn up or executed. And let's dig into that QB situation a bit more. A banged-up Trevor Lawrence.
What does that mean for the throws coming his way?
It often means, well, less velocity, maybe balls sail or die on him. Less precision, so fewer perfectly placed passes. More throws where the receiver has to adjust significantly, go high, go low, come back to the ball. And maybe Lawrence couldn't escape the pocket like usual, limiting those scramble drill opportunities where receivers can break open.
And Thomas still made plays.
Consistently, which speaks volumes about his hands, his catch radius, his body control, just finding ways to secure the ball even when it wasn't ideal. Then you factor in the relatively middling Mac Jones.
Switching QBs midstream is never easy.
Especially to someone maybe not playing at an elite level at that moment, maintaining production, let alone that level of production, through a QB change like that, it shows incredible adaptability. He had to adjust to different timing, different arm strength, maybe different preferences on routes.
And he just kept producing.
Kept producing, which tells you his success wasn't just about chemistry with one specific QB. It was rooted in his own ability to get open and make plays. What's really fascinating here is just how his sheer talent seemed to overcome all these systemic problems.
Like he could elevate the situation.
That's what it implies, yeah. Rather than being dependent on everything being perfect around him, he could still dominate. It points to that complete skill set, the route running, the separation ability, winning those contested catches. He was making it happen even when the offense as a whole wasn't.
Okay, let's circle back then to that number 6 wide receiver ranking. Because accumulating the stats is one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But getting ranked among the absolute elite by the experts, that's different.
It's a different level of validation, yeah.
And the article names names, the 5 guys ranked ahead of him. This really puts it in perspective.
Let's hear them.
Okay, the only receivers ranked ahead of Thomas on Prisco's list are Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, and A.J. Brown.
Okay, yeah, that's the list.
That's the list. I mean, these are Pro Bowl regulars, all pros, record setters, arguably the most dynamic playmakers in the whole league. And he's right there knocking on the door in year 2. It's just astonishing recognition.
It really is. That's elite company.
And interestingly, the article points out a specific comparison. Thomas lands 1 spot ahead of his former LSU teammate, Malik Neighbors, over with the Giants.
Interesting. The head-to-head there.
Yeah, both highly touted rookies from the same program, same class, and Prisco put Thomas just slightly ahead in this ranking. The source then kind of sums it up, saying, this seems like an appropriate ranking for Thomas after what he did on a putrid Jaguars offense last year. So again, reinforcing that it's not just projection, it's earned based on that tough rookie year.
Right. Being mentioned alongside Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, Hill, A.J. Brown. That's not just about potential talent. It's about immediate, consistent, dominant impact. These guys aren't just talented. They produce week in and week out.
And they all bring something slightly different.
Right. Exactly. Let's quickly break that down. You've got Tyreek Hill, just pure game-breaking speed and quickness. Turns slants into touchdowns.
Untouchable sometimes.
Then Jefferson and Lamb, maybe the best pure route runners, consistently creating separation, amazing hands, always open.
Technically brilliant.
Then you have Chase and A.J. Brown, physicality, explosiveness, just winning those 50-50 balls, overpowering defenders.
Bullies, in a good way.
Right. So for Thomas to be right there suggests he has a really potent mix of those traits. We saw the contested catches like Brown or Chase, but also the speed to get deep like Hill and the route nuance to get open like Jefferson or Lamb. He's versatile.
Not just one type of receiver.
Definitely not. And that quote from Prisco is really telling. With all the Travis Hunter talk, people forget how dominant Thomas Jr. was as a rookie for a bad offense in 2024.
Explain the Travis Hunter context there.
Yeah, so Travis Hunter, playing at Colorado, is this incredibly unique talent playing both ways, elite cornerback and wide receiver. He got tons of media attention, rightfully so, for that versatility.
The Deion Sanders effect, too.
Right. So Prisco's basically saying, while everyone was maybe focused on the novelty and flash of Hunter, they might have overlooked the sheer traditional dominance of a pure receiver like Thomas, who was doing it against NFL competition in a tough spot. Prisco's cutting through the hype and recognizing the substance.
Good point. Focusing on the actual NFL production.
Exactly. And that Malik Neighbors comparison, it's fascinating. 2 stars from LSU, same draft, both had great rookie years. For Prisco to put Thomas just that one spot higher, it means he saw something maybe slightly better consistency, maybe more impact in scoring situations, maybe just a gut feeling on the long-term ceiling that gave Thomas the slight edge in this particular ranking.
Speaks volumes about LSU producing these guys, too.
Absolutely. It shows the incredible talent pipeline there and also the fine margins when evaluating these truly elite young players. Tiny differences can shift the rankings.
Okay, this is where, for me, the deep dive gets even deeper. We're moving beyond just current rankings now into truly historical comparisons. What Brian Thomas Jr. did as a rookie wasn't just good or impressive. It was, like, historically significant, putting him right alongside NFL legends.
Yeah, this is where you really grasp the scale of it.
Let's hit some of these rookie rankings from 2024 first. He finished first among all rookies in receiving yards. Okay, expected maybe, but get this. 3rd overall in the entire NFL.
3rd as a rookie.
Only 2 players in the whole league had more yards than him. That's insane volume and efficiency. He was also first among rookies, tied for 6th overall in receiving touchdowns, so finding the end zone consistently.
Big-time scoring threat.
And for efficiency lovers. First among rookies, 2nd overall in yards per catch, 14.7 yards among guys with at least 75 catches. So not just dink and dunk, he was making big plays.
Chunk plays, game-breaking ability, elite numbers across the board, not just for a rookie.
Exactly. Now, here's a stat that really made me pause. The one that puts him in truly rarefied air. Brian Thomas Jr. became only the 4th rookie since the 1970 merger to get 1,200-plus receiving yards. A&D 10-plus receiving touchdowns.
Only the 4th ever. Wow. Who are the others?
The other names in this tiny exclusive club, Odell Beckham Jr., Jamar Chase, and Randy Moss.
Okay, just let that sink in. OBJ Chase, Randy Moss.
Right. Generational talents, Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, guys who changed the game. And Thomas is right there with them, statistically, after year 1. That's profound.
It really is. That's not a fluke statistic that indicates something truly special.
But wait, there's more. His 11 games with over 75 receiving yards, that was the most by any rookie in NFL history.
Most ever. What does that tell you?
Consistency. It wasn't just 1 or 2 huge games inflating his totals. It was week after week, being a reliable go-to guy, moving the chains, making plays consistently.
It's incredibly valuable. Shows dependability.
And compare that to the rest of the league last year. He tied Jamar Chase for the 2nd most 75-yard games in the entire NFL in 2024. Only Justin Jefferson had more, with 12. So again, comparing him to the absolute best right now, not just rookies.
Performing like a top 3 receiver in terms of consistent output, astounding.
And finally, this Randy Moss comparison. This one really hits hard. Thomas had 8 games with 60-plus receiving yards and a touchdown reception. That number tied Randy Moss for the most such games by a rookie in NFL history.
Tied Moss. In that specific stat, that's monumental.
Monumental is the word. Moss, especially rookie Moss, was maybe the most dominant TD threat we'd ever seen, scoring from anywhere. To tie one of his rookie records, combining yardage and touchdowns like that, it puts Thomas right alongside arguably the greatest big play scoring receiver ever in his first year.
These historical comparisons, they're just incredibly powerful, aren't they? Because they measure him against the absolute best, regardless of era. It's a timeless benchmark.
Sets him apart immediately.
Definitely. Let's think about that 2010 club again. OBJ, electrifying start, incredible catches, huge impact. Chase, explosive after the catch, key piece in a Super Bowl run as a rookie, Randy Moss. Just sheer physical dominance, redefined deep threats, scoring machine.
All game changers from day one.
Exactly. For Thomas to join their company, it signals more than just promise. It signals truly generational talent. It means he has that elite blend of high-volume production, they fed him the ball, and the ability to make those huge game-altering plays, both yards and touchdowns, not just moving the chains, but putting up points. And that record for games over 75 yards, that's huge for consistency. It shows he wasn't boom or bust. He was a reliable engine for the offense, week in, week out.
Especially important for a rookie finding his way.
Absolutely. To do it more than any rookie ever. And remember, on that struggling offense, it just shows incredible reliability. And tying Chase, nearly matching Jefferson across the whole league in that stat, it underscores his immediate league-wide impact. He wasn't just good for a rookie, he was one of the most consistent producers in the entire NFL. Period. And what's fascinating about that Randy Moss stat, the 8 games with 60-plus yards and a TD Moss, was just a touchdown machine, right?
Unstoppable near the end zone or from 50 yards out.
Right. So tying that record suggests Thomas has that same kind of knack, that nose for the end zone combined with the ability to break off significant gains that lead directly to scores. It highlights not just his catching ability, but his impact as a scoring weapon. That's invaluable. He's not just getting yards, he's finishing drives. So if you connect all these dots, these aren't just numbers, they're strong, strong indicators. They suggest Brian Thomas Jr. has the foundational talent, the consistency, the big play juice that you see in future Hall of Famers, perennial All-Pros.
The building blocks are clearly there.
Absolutely. His rookie year wasn't a fluke. It feels like the definitive start of something really special. He showed he can produce at an elite level even when things aren't perfect around him. That makes him a force to be reckoned with right now and going forward.
Okay, so we've hammered home the past achievements, his present standing as elite. Let's pivot now. Let's look ahead. What does all this amazing data, this historic start, actually mean for Brian Thomas Jr.'s future? Say, 2025 and beyond.
The projection part, what's the ceiling?
Exactly. And the article gives us a little hint, a tantalizing quote from Pete Prisco himself looking forward.
Oh yeah, what'd he say?
Prisco's quote is pretty simple but powerful. With Hunter on the opposite side and Trevor Lawrence healthy, he could be even better.
Even better after that rookie year.
That's what Prisco thinks. So what does this really mean? If he put up those kinds of numbers, broke those records, in that putrid offense with banged-up QBs, what happens if things actually get better around him?
The mind kind of bottles, doesn't it? If that was the floor or close to it.
Yeah, the potential upside seems enormous.
That projection from Prisco, it's crucial. It really speaks to Thomas's untapped potential. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, that historic rookie season was only scratching the surface.
Hard to imagine, but possible.
Let's think about a healthy Trevor Lawrence. A fully healthy QB, especially one with Lawrence's talent, arm strength, processing speed, accuracy when he's right, that changes everything for an offense.
How specifically for Thomas?
More consistent passes, right. Better timing, more balls put right on the money, more chances for yards after catch, and potentially more consistent deep shots that really utilize Thomas's speed, something maybe limited by Lawrence's injuries last year.
Opening up the vertical game more.
Exactly. Plus, a healthy Lawrence likely leads to a more efficient offense overall. Better play action, longer drives, just more opportunities for Thomas to produce, and likely improve his efficiency numbers, catch rate, yards per target even more. It's a fundamental upgrade. And then the Hunter on the opposite side factor. Again, assuming this refers to Travis Hunter potentially joining the fray.
Yeah, the implication seems to be another major receiving threat.
Right. So how does adding another guy like that impact Thomas? Well, first, fewer double teams, right?
Defenses can't double everyone.
Exactly. If there's another legitimate threat demanding attention, you simply can't afford to bracket Thomas on every snap. That means more one-on-one situations for him.
Which he clearly won often as a rookie.
You'd expect him to win even more often against potentially lesser corners if the opponent's top guy has to worry about Hunter sometimes. It creates favorable matchups, easier chances for big plays.
Makes sense. Spreads the defense thin.
And thirdly, there's that synergy. Two dominant receivers can actually make each other better. They create space for one another, make the passing game way less predictable, harder to defend overall. The whole offense gets a lift.
The sum is greater than the parts.
Precisely. So what's really fascinating here is that core idea.
Yeah.
He was dominant despite a bad offense and shaky QB play. If that's what he did in adversity, what could he do when things are optimized?
Yeah, the potential is staggering.
You could easily see him climbing even higher on those top 100 lists, maybe challenging for the absolute top spots in receiving yards, touchdowns, maybe even receptions league-wide. It puts him on a path not just to be a team's #1 receiver, but potentially an annual All-Pro, a guy who consistently ranks among the NFL's truly elite year after year. That rookie season, amazing as it was, might just be the prelude.
What an incredible story already. Just an amazing deep dive into Brian Thomas Jr.'s really rapid ascent. I mean, from setting those franchise rookie records, battling through that tough offensive situation, to getting recognized almost immediately as a top-tier guy alongside current stars, and even, tying records with legends like Randy Moss. It's truly compelling stuff,
Hard not to be impressed.
for sure. He's not just a player to watch anymore. He's already made a huge mark on the league in just one season. So thank you for joining us on this exploration of what it really means to be a genuine star in the making in today's NFL.
Absolutely. And this whole discussion, it raises a really important question, I think, for you, our listener, to mull over. Given Brian Thomas Jr.'s immediate historical impact, despite playing on what the source called a putrid offense with banged-up quarterbacks,
Yeah.
what does his success tell us about the sheer power of elite individual talent? How much can one guy overcome?
Yeah, nature versus nurture almost in football terms.
Kind of, and maybe even more provocatively. How high can his ceiling truly be? How much could his trajectory change, his stats explode if the Jaguars do manage to put that optimized environment around him, a healthy QB, maybe another weapon, consistent play calling? It really makes you wonder just how great he can become, doesn't it?